Yo, what's good, YouTube, man? It's Gary with another Fan TV back at you with the video. Like the content of this video, go smash that like button at the content of this channel. Go and subscribe, man. Look, so the Ravens go and make their 53-man roster cuts, right? You know, they dropped it late as usual. So I'm recording this at night. I probably, I don't know, drop this video in the morning and whatnot. But we're going to go through it, talk about each position group, briefly, and then kind of give my overall thoughts and, surprise cuts and things like that at the end, all right? So, all right, first of all, quarterbacks, right? So no surprises here. Lamar Jackson, Cooper Rush. The Ravens end up cutting Devin Leary. We'll see if they bring Devin Leary back on the practice squad or not, or is his time in Baltimore officially over with now? Devin Leary, I've never been a big component of the Devin Leary draft pick or, his preseason performances last year or this year. So we'll see what happens from here. But right now he's not on the team, right? We'll see if he clears waivers and the Ravens bring him back. But that's where we stand right now. Lamar Jackson, Cooper Rush. All right, running backs. So the Ravens have 4 running backs, 1 fullback. Okay, so Derrick Henry, Rasheen Ali, Keaton Mitchell, Justice Hill, Patrick Ricard. All right. The Ravens, John Harbaugh said it. They were going to keep Rasheen Ali, so there's no surprise there. Rasheen Ali has, in this preseason, he really impressed me, right? One, the kick return game, he looked really good in, right? So that's a big bonus for him, special teams bonus. He needed to be able to play that well. Okay. 2, when he actually got a chance to run the ball and play running back, he looked decisive, right? He wasn't bouncing around. He wasn't. He didn't look lost out there, right? So that's good progression, good growth, right? I think Rasheen Ali had a very, very good preseason. That's what helped him get on this roster, right? So, all right, wide receivers. It's pretty much the same wide receivers that we all know that we're going to make the team. Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, Tylan Wallace, Tez Walker, and LaJohntay Wester, right? So LaJohntay Wester makes it, rookie 6th-round pick. Also the Ravens is going to be the Ravens' primary punt returner this year, right? He won that job pretty much from the first preseason game, right? Really since the Ravens drafted him, they wanted him to take that role, and he took it. He grabbed it, right? So, no surprises there really for the wide receivers. All right, tight ends, right? Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kohler, Mark Andrews, right? So the big news here is that Isaiah Likely is on the 53-man roster and not on the PUP list, right? So that's not a surprise, right? There was no indication that the Ravens are ever going to put him on the PUP list, but he's been out for a little while. It's been questions about when exactly he's going to return, but the Ravens putting him on the active roster means that he could potentially play week 1. Now, for me, I would still hold him out. Let him miss the first 2 games, come back week 3, close to hopefully full strength, and be ready to go from there. But the good news is that he won't have to miss the first 4 games automatically, right? So Isaiah Likely is open to return. We'll see how that goes when we get closer to the actual game. Ravens. So the Ravens go 9 offensive linemen. Linderbaum, Cleveland, Bullock, Joe Noteboom, Rosengarten, Vincent, Voorhees, Falele, Stanley. So we already know what the starters were going to be. They laid out the starting offensive line. I talked about it in the video last week. But the backups, Ben Cleveland earned the roster spot. Honestly, this offseason, I thought Ravens were done with Ben Cleveland. I didn't think he was coming back. So for him to earn a roster spot, it's a little surprising. But, hey, they brought him back. He had a decent camp. It is what it is. Not mad at it. Corey Bullock, he has done a lot of work to become the Ravens' backup center. He's been one of the guys that's, kind of been standing out at training camp to the reporters and things like that. So, if you follow, the reporters, follow the beat closely, you will hear Corey Bullock's name, and there's no surprise that he's the guy that the Ravens chose to back up, Tyler Linderbaum, right? They're beating out Nick Samac and, other people like that, okay? And then Carson Vincent, rookie, he makes it over the other rookie, Garrett Dellinger. The Ravens, especially George Warhop, seem very, very interested in Carson Vincent's development. So there's no surprise that he made the roster. Okay, so that's the offensive side of the ball right there, right? Defensive line. John Jenkins, Matabike, Peebles, Broderick Washington, Travis Jones. No surprises here. The Ravens really love Aeneas Peebles. We already knew he was going to be on the roster. The other 4 guys were pretty much locks, right? So no surprises there. The Ravens just have linebackers on here, but we'll talk about inside linebackers, and then we'll talk about, the edge players. So the Ravens decide to carry 5 inside linebackers, okay? Roquan Smith and Trent Simpson as your presumed starters. Then you got Teddy Buchanan and Jake Hummel right after that. Jake Hummel more of a special teams guy. And then Jay Higgins, man. Jay Higgins. He made enough plays in preseason, made enough plays during camp. Zach Orr couldn't stop talking about Jay Higgins. So I'm not overall surprised that he made the team. But, it kind of is interesting the Ravens chose him. It was kind of him, how I view it was kind of him versus like a guy like Bo Braid, right? The Ravens could use some help in the safety room, and they could use some help on special teams, right? they decided to go with the guy that can help them on special teams, but also help them at linebacker. So, I think that was kind of like the choice it came down to. For Jay Higgins, he made plays, right? Interception in the Colts game, fumble, TFL tackle for loss, sack, fumble in the Cowboys game. He was always flying around and being around the football. So the Ravens took notice of that. So that's great for him. For outside linebackers now, Mike Green, Kyle Van Noy, David Ojabo, Tavius Robinson, Odafe Oweh. No surprises here. I know there was some people, like some rumors out there about David Ojabo, potentially being cut a couple days ago. That was just never going to happen, especially after the Adisa Isaac injury. David Ojabo was going to be a lock to make this team. Hopefully now he's had a pretty good camp, right? He's been solid. I think that with the pressure off of him, that he's not expected to be a guy like, hey, you got to be one of our main starters on the edge. He can just be a guy to come in rotation and make plays. I think he can fulfill that role. Now, obviously, that's disappointing for what a second-round pick is supposed to be. So I'm not excusing that at all. But it is the reality of the situation. Okay, that's kind of his role now. He's a role player. He's not a guy that's a starter, impact player. He's playing a role for the Ravens. Can he come in there and do that rotational pass rush? I think he can. All right, defensive backs right here, man. This is one of the bigger stories. Okay, so the Ravens go Wiggins, Awuzie, Kyle Hamilton, Sanusi Kane, Jair Alexander, Malachi Starks, TJ Tampa, Ruben Lowry, Keon Cole. Why did I say that? Keon Martin, excuse me. Martin and Marlon Humphrey. I'm all messed up at the end. And Marlon Humphrey at the end, right? So, all right, now Ravens go 2 undrafted free agents right here, making it a total of 3 undrafted free agents that made this team. Keon Martin, pick 6 versus the Commanders. Safety on Joe Milton versus the Cowboys. Continue to make plays. And then Ruben Lowry, he's been a guy that's been a training camp star, mini camp star, OTA star. Since the moment he stepped into the Ravens facility, they couldn't stop talking about Ruben Lowry. So I'm not overall surprised that he made the team. And then he catches the interception in the Cowboys game as well. So he makes the plays in practice. He transfers that over to the game. I think last game versus the Commanders, he had like 7 tackles. All right, not saying you want your safety to lead your team in tackles, but it shows that even though he's a smaller guy, 5'9", I think like 205, something like that, he's not afraid to come up and hit. Yeah, he can play the ball. He has good ball skills, but he will come up and hit you as well. I love that. So for him, Keon Martin, congratulations to those guys, right? And Jay Higgins as well, right? 3 undrafted free agents. The Ravens usually have 1 on there, maybe 2. So 3 guys making it undrafted, that's a big deal. Okay, that's a really big deal. Now, just my overall thoughts and my surprises. The biggest surprise is Jalen Armour-Davis being cut, right? From pretty much the moment training camp kicked off, Zach Orr, Pagano, all the Ravens on the defensive side of the ball, the coaches, all they did was talk about how smart Jalen Armour-Davis was, how he's coming along, how he knows every single position in the defensive backfield. He can do it all back there, right? Now, I know injuries have hurt him, and maybe that's why I'm not surprising the son because of his injury history. But just the way the Ravens were talking him up, then in the game versus the Commanders, he gets the interception. He looks like he's healthy, returning to health, and they cut him. That's a little surprising, right? I can't imagine he clears waivers. I mean, maybe I'm overvaluing, a Ravens player, which, as a Ravens fan, we could tend to do, right? So maybe he clears waivers and he comes back, but I don't think so. I think they cut him with the idea that, hey, we want to keep some of these younger guys here, right? And Jalen Armour-Davis has been here for a little while. Contract coming up, the Ravens just say, hey, let's get it out of there. Let's get it out the way early. That could be the case, right? You got Ruben Lowry here now. You got Keon Martin here. They could say, hey, look, this is where we're rolling with, right? I think, but it was surprising. I can't deny that. I didn't talk about the specialists either, but Tyler Loop as the kicker, Jordan Stout the punter, Nick Moore as long snapper. Sorry, don't want to forget those guys. Don't forget those guys either. And then I kind of talked about it. 3 undrafted free agents making the team. That's pretty big news, I would say. And then Bo Braid not making the team, right? So when Darius Washington initially went down, I talked about it early in training camp that it was going to come down between him and Sanusi Kane for kind of that third safety spot. And who knows, maybe Ruben Lowry has snuck his way in there now too. But regardless, it was going to come down to them two for that third safety spot. All right. And Sanusi Kane was a guy that kept popping. Not saying Bo Braid didn't play well. He obviously did. But, the Ravens have a lot of DBs. So somebody had to go. And the Ravens decided that it was Bo Braid. And then also to me with Bo Brady kind of cutting down to him versus Jay Higgins, I kind of talked about that earlier. Jay Higgins can also play special teams, and they love what they brought for him, what he brought at linebacker. And to me, the thing with Jay Higgins as well, this is kind of insurance on Trent Simpson, right? Trent Simpson hasn't been overwhelmingly, yeah, you're the guy, you snatched the job, you're standing next to Roquan Smith, right? He's going to be the starter. He should be the starter. But, Buchanan has had plays. Jay Higgins has had plays, right, where they both looked well, really, really good out there. If, obviously in Jake Hummels here as well, but I think he's a special teams ace. He may play some linebacker, but I think he's more a special teams ace, right? So I'm really looking at Buchanan and Higgins, honestly. But I could be wrong about that. But that's where I'm looking. So Trent Simpson, what's the struggle? Not saying the Ravens just want to throw another rookie out there. But it's not a guarantee that he's going to hold that spot down for the entire season. We have to see improvement from him. We do. So that's kind of my overarching thoughts about the Ravens roster, right? Love seeing that the 3 undrafted free agents made it, just because those guys really earned it with their play, right? If you're going to be undrafted, you're already against the 8-ball. So what do you got to do? You got to show up and make plays. And those guys did that all throughout camp, all throughout the OTAs, all throughout mini camps. Training camp and into the preseason games, right? So, and the Ravens rewarded those guys with a roster spot. I think that's dope. I think that's great to see, to be quite honest with you. And, I am surprised they cut Jalen Armour-Davis, right? I think that is surprising. But when you factor in health, age, not saying Jalen Davis is older, but he's older than than the younger guys that are here. And health, age, and availability kind of goes into the health thing. Hey, it makes sense a little bit, but it was still surprising when that first came across the screen. But that's my thoughts on it, man. Give me your thoughts on it. Give me your surprises, or you surprised by anything at all? Let me know in the comments. It's Gabriel, Untitled Fan TV. I'm out.